Hi, boys and girls. Happy Monday. It's Miss Ross. We're going to continue to review the topics that we've covered this year in fourth grade. We're moving on to topic 3, which is using strategies and properties to multiply by one-digit numbers. So the first lesson is lesson 3.1, which is multiply by multiples of 10, 100, and 1,000. And here you're really going to rely on your facts that we all know that you guys have worked really hard to know. Just a reminder, when you're thinking of multiples of 10, remember multiples are like skip counting. So multiples of 10 would be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. You guys know. Multiples of 100, 100, 200, 300, 400, and so on. And multiples of 1,000, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. So we're going to review today just sort of a couple different strategies when you're seeing the multiplication today. So I'm going to start over here. So if you notice, we're going to start with the idea of using our basic facts and place value to do the multiplication. So the original problem is 3 times 50. And remember, 50 is a multiple of 10, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So you can think of your basic facts, right? So you can think of 3 times 5, which is 15, right? Or 3 times 5 tens. So if I multiply 3 times 5, I get 15 and 15 tens. So 15 times 10 is 150, right? And so one trick I sort of have taught my students and I use as a double check is I think how many zeros are in the question? 1. I'm going to add 1 0 to whatever my answer is with my basic fact, okay? Don't make the mistake of thinking how many zeros are in the question have to be the same number of zeros as in the product, because sometimes your basic facts will have a 0 in it, so that thinking that way isn't going to work. So let's think about it here again. My basic fact is 3 times 5, but it's 3 times 5 hundredths. So I know 3 times 5 is 15. So if I have 15 hundredths, if I were to count by 100 15 times, I would get 1,500. And my way to double check is I have 2 zeros in my question. I'm going to add 2 zeros to my basic fact. My basic fact is 3 times 5, which gives me 15, and then I add 2 zeros. Okay? Another way is to look back at our associative property, which also are a book called The Breaking Apart Strategy. So remember, the associative property tells us that we can regroup the way that we multiply, and it's still going to give us the same product. So here we have 3 times 50. And I'm going to keep the 3, and I know 50 is actually 5 times 10. And then I'm going to regroup it. Instead of doing 5 times 10, I'm going to do 3 times 5. So notice the order, 3 times 5 times 10, 3 times 5 times 10. The order stays the same, but the way I'm grouping them or breaking them apart to multiply is different. Because if I do 3 times 5, I know I get 15, and then 15 times 10 is 150. Okay, so I just sort of was thinking about the multiplication in a different order. So let's think about it here with a larger number. So our basic fact is still the same. So 3 times 500. So 3 times, well, 500 is actually 5 times 100. Okay, if I regroup that multiplication and think about it as 3 times 5, which is 15, and then 15 times 100 is 1,500. Okay, so these are just ways for you to sort of explore the concept of multiplication and think about it in different ways. So let's try. Today they're going to show you sort of how to think about it in terms of a pattern in multiples. So if you think about your basic fact first, so 8 times 4 we all know is 32. And then 8 times 40, I'm going to use sort of that trick I talked about before. So there's 1 0 in the question. So I'm going to do my basic fact, which is 8 times 4, so 32. And I'm going to add 1 0. Okay? 8 times 4, my basic fact is 32. And there are 2 zeros in our question. So I'm going to add 2 zeros to my product. And I'm not going to forget my comma. Same thing here. 8 times 4 is 32. And there are 1, 2, 3 zeros in my question. So I'm going to add 3 zeros to my product, 32,000. Okay? So here we have to really think about sort of this trick that we're using. So 8 times 5 is 40. So notice in our basic fact, there is a 0. So just keep that in mind. So I'm going to say again, 8 times 5, my basic fact. I'm going to write my basic fact, 40. Ooh, that was a good 4. And then I'm going to add 1 0. So notice in this situation, because our basic fact has a 0 in it, that idea of thinking like the number of zeros in my question is going to be the same as the number of zeros in my answer, that's not correct, because there's already a 0 in your basic fact. Okay? So that's why I like the idea to go through the strategy of writing the basic fact and then adding the number of zeros. So here my basic fact, 8 times 5 is 40. And then I'm going to add 2 zeros. And that was not pretty. Here, my 8 times 5 is 40. And then 1, 2, 3 zeros. Ooh. And my comma. Okay? So let's try another one. My slides don't freeze. So they have. There we go. Okay. So another question you might be asked today is how many zeros would be in the product of 5 times 400? So this is asking you to sort of think about the strategy you're using and reason it out. So I would find the answer. 5 times 4 is my basic fact. So 5 times 4 we know is 20. And then I'm going to add 2 zeros. 1, 2. So how many zeros are in our product? There are 3 zeros in my product. And if they ask me to explain that, I would say I know that the basic fact is 20, so that has 1 0, and then I would add 2 zeros from the 100 from 400. Okay? And then lastly today, a little problem solving, and you might see some bar diagrams as you're working through your problems today. So remember, bar diagrams can represent addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. So they have many sort of ways that they can be used in mathematics. So here, Sue saved $200. She wants to buy 7 games that cost $30 each. Oh, it should be Sue. Does Sue have enough money? Sorry, this should be Sue. Does Sue have enough money? So let's find out how much the games would cost. So here we have a bar diagram. We need to find the total cost of the games, which would be G. And I know this is making some of my students crazy. This should be Sue. Okay. So we have 7 30s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for the 7 games. So this bar diagram represents 7 groups of 30, right? 7 times 30. Let's use our basic fact. 7 times 3 is 21. And then how many zeros do I add? 1. So the cost of all of the games for Sue would be $210. Does she have enough money? No, she only has $200. Okay? All right, guys, I think you guys got this today. Just remember your basic facts and the rules for adding a 0. All right? Have a great day. Tomorrow with more of topic 3.